Hello and welcome to Authors and Espresso. I'm your host, Nadia Gilks, and today we have a real treat because we have the Joel Plummer here on the virtual stage with us. Now, before I bring him in, I have to go through a little bit of this resume because he is such an incredible individual. So, Joel has a bachelor's in African and African American studies, a master's in history, was inducted into Phi Beta Kappa at Rutgers, earned a Supervisor of Instruction certificate through Rutgers University Graduate School of Education, taught African American and U.S. history for more than 20 years, even though he looks 15. And also worked as a photojournalist for more than a decade at LA Times, Wall Street Journal, Daily Beast, NBC, CBS, and on and on and on. So thank you for coming and joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
And for those of you following this podcast, by the time you hear this episode, I will have already aired the revisit because Joel was on my festival stage in 2020. So if you haven't already listened to that, go back and listen to that where he talks about his first book, Sumo Wrestlers and Supermodels. And today we are going to talk about, because you have been busy since then, so we're going to talk about your new venture, Black Kid, White School, What They Don't Teach Your Black Child, Volume 1. So Volume 1, I'm guessing there's more to come.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what inspired you to write this book? I see that you have a beautiful blend of putting your history and your photojournalism in the book with all of the illustrations. But what inspired you to write it, and especially at this time?
There were a couple of incidents that happened that made me realize it was time to write. So to begin with, I only write out of absolute necessity. Like, I do not enjoy writing at all. Like, it's torturous for me. Because, I worry about every single word, every single comma. Like, it's it's a torture session. So I write out of absolute necessity. I think it was Zora Neale Hurston who said there's no something like there's no pain like that of an untold story in you. And so when I get to that point, that's when I write. So what pushed me over the edge though was I was talking to my own children. And mind you, like you said with my bio, I've been teaching for history for 27 years at the high school level, college level for 17 years. And something came up with my kids. It might have been the Black Panthers. And they immediately said, "Oh, you mean the Marvel comic book character?"
Oh,
And I was
gosh.
like, "No, the the Black Panther party." And I got a bunch of blank stares. And I was like, okay, I need to teach my kids some stuff. I'll get around to it. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, what if I don't have time to get to it? What if, God forbid, something happens to me and there is no tomorrow? Um, I have life insurance for my family to cover them financially, but intellectually and psychologically, what am I bequeathing my children? And so that kind of put a battery in me to pin down as much as I can all the stuff that I knew my children aren't going to get taught in school. So level one was I was trying to reach my own children. Well, level two is in the summer, sometimes, couple of summers, I taught in a program at Rutgers for first generation college students, but who weren't necessarily poor. And so it was a lot of Black kids that lived in suburban neighborhoods that had never had a Black teacher. And when I was teaching, I was doing a course on Paul Robeson. So I was talking about the context of American racism at the time. And for a lot of them, the course was validating because they never had anyone to speak directly to their history and their worldview. And for them, they loved finally having someone that again provided validation for all the stuff they were feeling in their schools. Um, they talked about being the other, being the only black kids, and things they thought were racist and microaggressions they felt, but there was no one to bounce
Yeah.
their feelings off of. And I was like, okay, these kids need ammunition to help protect themselves as well. So so that so that those two things together really pushed me to do this book now.
Okay. And you mentioned your children, and I don't know how old they are, and then the college kids that you mentor. This book is very heavy. So what is the age range or what is the youngest that you would recommend to be able to read this book?
I wrote it with middle school and up in
Okay.
mind, and the parents of those students. And I always say from the outset that I'm not doing any groundbreaking research in this history text because what my job is, I'm a teacher. I'm able to take all this high level scholarship from collegiate level and graduate level sources and synthesize it into a package that lay people can understand. And that's what I'm trying to do here. I try to write it in a way that would be clear for a person coming in cold off the streets that had no serious study of history before, but they could pick it up and get quick, meaningful lessons.
And that's how I took it in because I'm not a history buff. I don't know a lot of history. I don't go seeking it out. And quite honestly, I know you say it's not groundbreaking, but a lot in your book was not covered when I was in school. So I really loved how you put all of that together. I'm wondering, being an educator, how everything that they're taking out of schools now and how they're watering down history, has that affected you at all? I mean, you're in New Jersey where it's a little more progressive, but have you seen any change?
And you know what? I should have added that was the third reason why I decided I had to do this book right now as well to counteract the erasure of Black history that's being attempted by the leaders of the federal government right now. In terms of teaching, actually, no, I've been very good here in New Jersey. In fact, we've my school district has been actually proactive, going the opposite direction. We're actually doubling down on our commitment to having an inclusive curriculum. But I recognize that that's not the case in most of the country, and that's the point of the book. When I meet with parents, I let them know. I say, look, it'd be nice if schools taught your kids everything they needed to know about navigating America as a black person. But the reality is you're not going to get it. Maybe someday, but that day's not today. So this book is designed for parents to be able to pick up and say, let me fill in the gaps.
Mhm.
So for instance, instead of talking about Dr. King and the Montgomery bus boycott, I talk about the black women who came up with the idea first. Right. That didn't come from the men in the community. That didn't come from the leadership class. It was black women, working class black women, that came up with the idea of the boycott. And started organizing the first boycott, and then the ministers in town jumped on. Was like, oh, that's a good idea, and then they helped expand it. But it was those women that came up with that idea, and then it was those women that helped fund it because there was money involved because people still had to get to work even though they're not using the buses. So this carpool system has to get set up. You have to pay for gas, you have to pay for vehicle maintenance. And again, these women's groups raise the money through selling dinners, doing fundraisers to make that boycott successful. So again, that's why I call it what they don't teach you. I take the topics that often get covered, but I give you the rest of the story that is often missing.
Yes, and you go through from the very beginning, going through that door of no return all the way to the civil rights movement. If you don't mind, I'd like to go because you have this separated into 5 lessons. So if you could just tell us a little bit about each lesson, that would be great so parents know what they're picking up, or people might have a little more idea of exactly what they will learn if they read it for themselves. So lesson 1, Africa.
Yep. So we have to start there. And I should have said from the outset, you know, my bio can be summed up in really one sentence. And that is, I see myself as a historical optometrist. It is my job to get Black people to be able to see their past, their present, and their future clearly, um, right, and accurately. And you can't do that without understanding the beginning of Black history, which is the beginning of humanity, which takes us back to Africa. You can't understand how devastating the transatlantic slave system was without first understanding what we lost in Africa. So I make a point by starting with the very biology of Black people. And that's my point. I really want to remind Black people how amazing they are. Um, Going back to just biologically, that Africa and Africans are the source code for all of humanity, right? Every phenotype that you see in existence traces back to Africa. Um, every skin color, hair texture, blonde hair, curly hair, light skin, dark skin, even what people would say Asian eyes, epicanthic eyes. Those aren't Asian eyes, Far East Asian eyes. Those are South African eyes. Like that all comes from Africa, and so everyone else is a derivative of Black people. And so you should always walk the earth feeling pretty good about yourself, because even if the whitest of white supremacists is saying negative stuff about you, remind them that, like, I birthed you, son. Um, just remember where you come from. And so from there, though, I go into the history.
Mhm.
And it's so important to remind not only Black students, but everyone, how advanced Africa was. People forget that most of the story of humanity, modern humans, happens on the African continent. In the grand scope of history, people have only been outside of Africa for a relatively short period of time.
Hmm.
The phenotype of the blonde hair, blue eyed white person in Europe, that's only about 8,000 years old. Richard Leakey reminds us that for 90% of the existence of humanity, humanity was dark skinned.
Mhm.
And Black people weren't just sitting around twiddling their thumbs during that period. They were building civilization. People used to think that the first sign of artistic expression was in a cave in France. But now we found out that there was African art in South Africa in Blombos caves that's tens of thousands of years earlier. And that's important too, because the thing that's always under attack with Black people is our humanity. And that's why we were victims of slavery, of Jim Crow, of police brutality. That all happens because too many white people see us as subhuman, and therefore they can do whatever they want to us. Art is important because only humans do art.
Mm.
So every piece of art that a Black person does is political. Whether it's a simple drawing in a cave or a flower, it's just reestablishing your humanity. And only people that are civilized have time to do art. If you're trying to meet your basic needs and just trying not to die, you don't have time to do art and religious reflection. So the
Based on
fact that these
X-ray.
people, yeah, were doing art shows that they had reached civilization many thousands of years earlier than most people believe. And then, I go into Egypt, um, and I do that because you can't ignore the importance of Egypt. And I don't spend a lot of time on it, but just to be clear, everything that ancient Egypt is famous for happened when Egypt was Black. I always have to remind people that the people that run the Arab Republic and populate the Arab Republic of Egypt that exists today are not the people that founded ancient Egypt. Right? Those are the descendants of the invaders. Those people are their claim to Egypt's history is as deep as white Americans claim to being Native American.
All right, well, brief pause.
So that means
Technology and technical difficulties, but I think you were coming to the end and wrapping up the portion about Africa as we go
yeah.
into lesson 2.
Yeah, I was pointing out that the importance of Africa to the history of humanity. And one of the things I'd like to point out is how developed West Africa was when Europeans first came into it and disrupted society. There's this myth that Europeans came into like a blank or only partially civilized land. And one of the things um, I'd like to quote is David Stannard's description of Europe at the time that they began to explore the Western world, what would become the Western world. And then I want to compare it to what West Africa was like. So, so to read from the book, I say modern people would find medieval Europe a very difficult place to live. At the time of Columbus's voyage to the New World, Europe was rife with diseases. Plagues, measles, influenza, diphtheria, typhoid fever, and smallpox killed Europeans by the thousands. Famine was common, and a fluctuation in the price of food could lead to thousands of people starving to death. Cities smelled horrible as European cities had ditches filled with stagnant water that citizens used as public toilets. Streets contained the decomposing bodies of dead animals and humans. The living people were also a source of foul smell, as most Europeans did not bathe regularly and some never bathed in their entire lives. They also had rotting teeth and bad breath due to poor dental care. And it was common for Europeans to suffer from various skin diseases. Meanwhile, if you take a place like Sangay in West Africa, while Europeans are still using chamber pots and throwing their waste out the window in streets, Sangay had two-story homes with indoor plumbing. They would have a toilet on the second floor that had a pipe that led down underground, and gravity would take the waste down to the ground. And there was a system of water and stones that got poured down the drainage system to cover up the offensive smells. At the same time that Europeans are dying of these diseases that are spreading massively, Africans had already found a way to inoculate themselves from smallpox. They found out that if you burst the got a little a bit of the smallpox pus, and you gave someone a small cut and infected them with a small amount of it, that they would get sick for a little while, but eventually they'd become immune to smallpox. Um, and that practice would eventually get brought to America by enslaved African in Boston. They also had records of thousands of different types of um, of of diseases. They had medical instruments. It's and of course the richest person in the history of humanity, Mansa Musa, from Mali, existed at this time, worth more than $400 billion, and not like Elon Musk, imaginary money that's based on stock market fluctuation. It's in gold. It's tangible money, right? So it's this amazing place that gets disrupted by chapter 2, which is the slave system. And what I wanted to drive home in lesson 2 about slavery is that slavery is much worse than what pretty much every American thinks.
Right.
Like the amount of death, the amount of torture, the amount of rape, the psychological impact that it had, it is way worse than most Americans are have ever been aware of. And then chapter 3 goes into the period of time. It's actually my favorite period in history. It's the period of time after slavery, where for 100 years, America legally mandates racism towards black people, right? The Jim Crow era, that era combined with the slave system should have meant the extinction of black people, right? We shouldn't have been able to overcome that nearly 400 years of violent oppression. And yet we not only survive, we thrive. So we survived that period where again you are legally mandated to be racist towards black people. And this is what makes the story of black people in America different from other ethnic groups. Lots of ethnic groups will say people were mean to us, we had a rough time. True. But what black people experienced in America was the codification of racism. It was my grandmother in La Plata, Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C. She wasn't allowed, it was illegal for her to look white people directly in the eye or to walk on the same sidewalk as white people. And that wasn't custom or tradition. That was law. An assemblyman wrote it down, took it to the state legislative body. They talked about it, they voted, they passed it. Right? It's law that black people can't go to white churches, can't go to white schools, can't be buried in white cemeteries, can't be given titles of respect in court like Mr., Mrs., or Doctor, can't be in public swimming pools or try on clothes, can't walk next to train tracks at night, can't spit in public, can't sell vegetables after dark. In some places, it was illegal for black people to fish, hunt, or farm. So they had to be dependent on white people for survival. Like all that wasn't just people being mean, it was the law. You were a criminal if you invited black people into your space. And that's a unique story in America. And we still got through it all. We survived it. We survived it all. I'm sorry. In between, I have the chapter about emancipation. And the point I tried to make there is that Abraham Lincoln didn't free the slaves. Like black people largely freed themselves. The constant rebellions, the constant agitation from the outside through the abolition movement, and black people participating in the Civil War is what brought that system to an end. Then black people experienced the Jim Crow era. That's chapter 4. And what's in that chapter 4 that's super important is that it's a real simple thing that other ethnic groups take for granted. But black people were not allowed to live the American dream of starting at the bottom and working at the top. When black people were being lynched and tortured in the South and said, you know what? We're just going to move. They got met with a ridiculously violent reaction. There were white people that literally would patrol trains and shoot black people that were trying to move north. Or states and cities would inflict huge fines on job recruiters from the north that tried to get black people to come up north. Like tens of thousands of dollars you had to pay to get a license to recruit black people in one city because they didn't want black people to have the freedom to do what every other American has in a capitalist society, which is sell your labor to the highest bidder. Black people were not able to do that. And then once they got to the north, of course, black people weren't allowed to buy the homes they were eligible to buy. They got stuck in these neighborhoods. Every ghetto in America was legislated by someone in some political office. Not a single black ghetto in America was naturally occurring. They were all legislated either by direct segregation or by redlining and denying black people the right to buy property outside those zones. So the first 4 chapters, chapter 1 establishes the greatness of Africa. Chapter 2 talks about the horrors of slavery. Chapter 3 is the ending of slavery. Chapter 4 is the horrors black people endured even after slavery. But chapter 5, of course, is the many ways that black people resisted.
Mhm.
And that's actually the
That's
longest
my
chapter in the
favorite.
book. And I reject the notion and this is often the right wing white supremacist argument. They're like, why are you always acting like victims? Well, because we were. And I won't be gaslit into feeling like I'm doing something wrong with pointing out the evil that was done to me. But at the same time, I do want to acknowledge all the many ways that Black people fought back. And it's fitting that I have a section on Asada Shakur and the Black
Was gonna
Liberation,
mention that. Mhm.
yeah, and the Black Liberation Army, as she has just transitioned and she gets to die free from a U.S. jail.
Yeah,
But that's so the whole thing is from the greatness of Africa, takes you through the horrors of slavery, the trials of trying to end slavery into a new form of oppression. But still, no matter how much was put on us, Black people continue to fight.
yeah. Fight and thrive, and I think that's the undercurrent of the hate. People just can't understand how with all the obstacles and everything that was done, how can they still be so regal and thriving and excellent in every facet and industry and corner of this country? But that's the bloodline. So with the that was volume 1. So what is to come next? How many volumes do you foresee, and what do you cover in the next ones?
So what happened here, as I was writing this, I realized that the book was getting too long for my intended audience. And I should point out that this book isn't written as a straight narrative. It's written in question and answer form because, again, looking at my own children and their attention span and their being used to watching quick hit TikTok videos, and Instagram reels and YouTube shorts, I was like, okay, I can't write these super long narratives. So what I did is I broke up the book into questions and short questions and answers. And the idea behind the book is that you could pick it up and start on any page and read a question and answer, get a brief history lesson. And as I was writing this, I realized, okay, I'm getting to the point where my intended audience won't be able to focus through this whole thing. And so this first volume is just history. What I also wanted to include was sections on the psychology of the Black experience, economics, politics, culture and art, and sports. So that would have doubled the size of this book. So when I got to the end of the history section, I was like, okay, that's enough for this go around. Volume 2 will cover those other topics.
I feel like they could be a mini series of books with each one of those being its own short
That
short
that
book.
might be the way to go because that would also be less painful for me.
Exactly.
Um,
That's what I do. I give ideas. I listen to what you have going on and I just throw out my little 2 cents. But I could see that being a little series so that they could just pick it up and go and it's topical. And the way you describe it almost makes it seem like um a a book form of our Smithsonian in DC, where, that's separated by different eras and segments. The book is doing the same idea.
that's exactly right, and I am definitely going to take that idea.
Well, you're welcome.
You
Well,
just made
I'll
the
just invite you back. I'll keep having you on my stage.
yeah, no, you just made the path forward way less intimidating. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we've talked about the book, and I hope that people pick it up. It is on Amazon, both of them on Amazon. So now I'd like to talk because we are a self-publishing, writing, editing, kind of go into all of that. You say that writing is painful for you and it's done by necessity, but you do it and you do it really well. What is your writing process like? Do you use a computer? Do you have a special section in your home? Do you go outside the home to change your scenery? What's your process when you do have to do it?
I do it where and when I can. Um, it starts with me writing on an iPad and handwritten on the iPad, just topics that I want to cover, and I'll just make a list, and I'll grab one of those topics, and my thing is, if I can get anything on the screen a day, I'll take it. If it's a sentence, if it's a paragraph, I'll do it. But it but that's my process. Like, I force myself to write something every day. I try to get a page, but if not that, at least one complete thought every single day, no matter how tired I am, no matter what's going on. I'll just write, and I don't worry about necessarily where it fits in with in the whole story. I know it's a piece that I'm going to use somewhere in the text, so I write it, and then I'll figure out where it fits in later. Because I already have the list of topics that I know I want to cover, so I know it's important. I just don't know how to tell the story completely yet, but that's another thing that would stop me from writing. If and I think that stops some people from starting. They think they have to have everything perfectly lined up from start to finish, and then like it's just this straight track that you follow all the way. And it
Mhm.
and for me, it doesn't work out that way. I just chip away randomly, random spots of the book here and there. um, I type. I type. Grammarly is my best friend. Um, I love it because I can focus on what I'm trying to say and not be, because I do obsess over this stuff. Obsess over, did I use a semicolon the right way in that sentence? Because something like that will like just derail my whole writing process, worrying about that little stuff. So I love using Grammarly to handle my basic grammar. Um, so I often write in Grammarly, or I'm an Apple user. I'll write in Pages, which and I it has a Grammarly plugin. So I'm editing and writing at the same time. Um, but I write every day until I get a rough draft. This book took me about 2 years to do because I had to do research that on stuff I thought I knew,
Mhm.
and it turns out it's like, oh, I don't know as much about this as I thought. So, so I'm researching, I'm writing, but I'm writing every day, and it's like homework. I make sure I have it, and even right now, I feel guilty. I'm so used to having this book hanging over my head that it feels like, "Oh, I should be writing something right now." But and then once I get the rough draft down, then I'm going over it. Once then I organize, make sure that I have the stuff in the order I want. And then for me, editing, I have to read out loud. So I either read it out loud, or I use the text to speech feature on the computer and have the computer read it to me as I go along. And I'll do at least, I don't know, like 10 passes, from beginning to end, um, until I get to the point where it's like, all right, Plumber, that's you got to let this out at some point. It is what it is.
Is that your only editing process, or do you let people read it and give you feedback, or you just go with your own
So
editing?
about past 7, I'll send it out to people to get what they um get feedback. This was important. The format was important for me. So I had some students look at it to see whether they could follow the format.
Mhm.
Um, I have people that know history to look at it to make sure I'm not saying anything egregiously wrong. Um, but to be honest, though, it's hard to get. People are busy,
Yeah.
and it's hard to get good feedback. sometimes. So I do have a small circle of people that do give me good feedback. And I take those notes and then incorporate those into, drafts like 8, 9, and 10. Um, and then oh, I should point out, oh, she'll be so mad at me. And then the cover design, my daughter is a graphic artist.
My
She's an artist.
gosh.
Yeah. She goes to an art school, the same school I teach at, and her we call them studios, but it's like their major, the concentration is graphic arts. And so this cover design, with the cover of the book is a black girl sitting in class, with a white teacher in front of her, and the white teacher is blocking a garbage can that has a book. It has an African history book and a map of Africa in it, and a Huey P. Newton reader in it.
Are you
Um,
looking at it right now? Can you hold it up?
yeah, I think it will come up. I might come up backwards,
Yes, that's great.
but yeah.
Oh, I love that. So
And
this was family project. It was for your kids, and your daughter was able to participate in the process.
yes, she did charge me full price for the artwork,
Are
but
you
I
serious?
but I've been telling her for years. I'm a photographer. I always tell her
Know your
artists
worth.
artists are supposed to get paid for their work,
Very true.
and she held me to that.
I love that. And then you do have a lot of illustrations in your book, which is something, I talk to a lot of fiction authors or memoirs, so there's not always pictures. A lot of them were your own. Uh, Anna, I believe I saw
Uh-huh.
pictures of, and several others. What was that process like, including photos and doing the color printing? Because that's a process I haven't done yet.
So with the photos, luckily for me, I'm doing history.
Mhm,
And a lot of the photos I needed are photos that are so old that there's no copyright restrictions on them. So photos I can get from the Library of Congress, or Wikimedia Commons, because some of these photos are literally hundreds of years
mhm.
old. Um, so that the internet is a lifesaver. So I was able to find a lot of
And a
the
curse.
historical photos. And when you know how to use the internet for research, it is just a godsend. So I was able to get a lot of those photos, and like you said, I was able to incorporate photos that I took in Africa, photos I took in Birmingham of the 16th Street Church window when the four little girls were bombed. So I was able to incorporate that, and I knew I had to have photos in this book to make it work. Because when I teach in class every day, I always use photographs and videos, and so that's what this book was supposed to be. It was supposed to be the closest I could get to teaching whoever's reading. Like the way the book is designed, it's like a discussion as if you were in class with me, in a classroom with me, and you
Gosh,
were
I just had,
asking
like,
me.
another great idea for you.
Uh, do tell.
No, I had another great idea for us because you're taking us, the reader, on a journey. So when your next volumes come out, because I think I heard 6, you can have a QR code that leads us to a little video journey along with the book so that we can see any movies that you've created or what you normally show your class. Just throwing that out there for what I would like. But
That is
keep going.
excellent. That is excellent.
That's okay. I'll air this and you can take notes on it
Yes,
later.
yes,
I you keep talking, I'll keep having ideas. That's how I work.
um, I forgot the question I was answering.
Well, we were talking about the photos that you took yourself and you
Photos.
I think ended with the 16th Street Baptist Church.
Right, right. But I knew I had to have images,
Mhm,
in the book. So I had to find the images and find the struggle sometime with those old photos was finding the authors of the creators of those photos. So that took some time. Now, the printing in color, it doesn't require any more work, but as a self-publisher, it raises the price tremendously.
I see. Moolah.
And,
Listen, when I see books in color, I'm like, "Oh, they went all out for me."
yeah. but I knew with these images, I was like, I have to do color.
Yeah.
And of course, I have to pass that price on to the consumer. So it's about finding that happy point where it's the price is enough for me to actually turn a profit and get paid for my work, but also not so cost prohibitive that the customer is like, I can't mess with that.
I didn't wanna
But
buy a textbook today, I didn't wanna spend 200. Yeah.
yeah, but you know what? This summer I watch people spend so much money on
Sure.
cowboy outfits for
Uh-oh.
Beyonce concerts,
Shots fired, shots fired.
and I'm like, "Listen, if you have money for an outfit that you might only wear once, you can spend $25 for your kids', education."
For sure.
And I haven't received any pushback
No, no, th I think the price
on the
point
price.
is well within even just black and white books, so it's not expensive at all, but to that point, people always have money for what they want. It's
There it
how
is.
badly do you want the knowledge? And, every time I talk to teachers, we always make our way around to and I know you're in college, so it's different, but for the younger kids, you have
I
parents.
teach full-time high school too, high school and college.
Yeah, so how often do you see the parents in your, PTA meetings or, it's
Right.
like how involved are they even in their kids' education? So sometimes books are just not where we spend our money, but they have the money for sure.
Yep. And I will say the plus side to the terror that the Trump administration is unleashing on people of color is that people that in the past were kind of passive about what's happening in the world are much more awake now.
Oh, good.
Um, yeah, and it's really marketing wise, the bigotry of the Trump administration is really useful right now, because this is exactly that's exactly what I'm trying to counter, and I'm
Mhm.
trying to give people the tools to fight back against what's happening. One more thing about the color, I will say it is very satisfying, when you get your first proof and you see the color, and it's like, "Oh, okay,
Beautiful.
this does kinda feel worth it."
And to put it out into the atmosphere, who do you use? Are you just going straight to Amazon? Are you using Ingram Spark or BookBaby? Did you have any
So,
publishing assistants?
um, of course, on Amazon, we're in Ingram Spark, but the thing that I've enjoyed most about this time around is that one of my former students started a bookstore here in my hometown. And it's like the only Black-owned bookstore in the area, and it's become a hotspot, and she has sold more of my books, than Amazon. In one day, she sells more of my books than what what's going on Amazon. And so I'm really appreciating how useful it is to have your book in a brick and mortar
Or
store,
yeah.
and her store is catering to the exact audience that my book is intended for. So it's working out really well there. My problem right now actually is that I can't get enough copies
Right.
uh
Keeping it in stock,
shipped fast enough.
which is a beautiful problem to have,
Yeah.
especially for an indie author. Do you also take this to different schools, to the African or African studies departments to see if it's accepted as a school, required text?
I haven't yet. So I just published September 1st.
Start
Yep, September 1st. That's with the published date. So I haven't.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank
Your
you.
book was a baby in the world.
Yes, and that was my birthday, my 50th birthday. Uh,
Wow, happy belated. That's
thank
a
you.
great birthday surprise.
Yeah, so I timed that out to match. So I haven't done that yet. But I know that parents on the ground are going to be the heart of the audience here. Um, and so probably not college level, but but school level, it's definitely, I'm going to start making the rounds and, pitching the book to schools and parent organizations.
And then are you also, booking for speaking engagements, or is that a part of your marketing plan as well?
Absolutely. Um, I love traveling and speaking. So I'm gearing
He
up for
wants
that
to get
too.
flued out, ladies and gentlemen. No.
Yeah, yes, I do. I enjoy that. I enjoy seeing other parts of the country and the world, but I really like connecting with people in other places. And I take for granted, like you said, here in New Jersey, we're pretty protected. We can pretty much teach whatever we want. But I have friends in Florida, I have friends in Texas, and it's not
Yeah, that
not
this
the same.
don't start there. Don't start there with the book tour.
And like, and those are the places that I would like to really hit. And my dream would be to somehow get my book on a banned book list. Because that
Well,
would
you
be
hit to Florida, it'll get there pretty quickly, I'm
that,
almost sure of it.
that's what I would love. But I always tell my students that if you're living your life right, that in a society that is still racist, sexist, homophobic, doesn't care about the poor, if that society loves you, then you're complicit in its evil. If you're pushing back against the system in any meaningful way, somebody should be mad at you. Somebody should roll their eyes when they see you coming. And that means that you're doing something right. So I revel in the idea of being a troublemaker, being the person that people on the wrong side of justice find annoying.
Yeah, I love that. Well, is there anything that I didn't ask or we didn't cover that you would like the audience to know or consider?
Um, just that, and I this is something I also always tell my students. We have to be aware that no one is coming to save us. No one's coming to save black people. Like the cavalry's not coming. You are it. You are the last line of defense. And so that is the motivation for this book. I'm trying to give black people, black parents and their allies the ammunition to fight back against this horde of oppression that is trying to crash down on us. So, even if you don't get my book, you have to take it upon yourself to educate your own children. You have to supplement your children's learning. And you might want to get my first book, Sumo Wrestlers and Supermodels, which is about what teachers should be doing. Because the reality of the situation is you have to fill the gaps that are going to happen in your child's education. Your child's school, no matter how fancy it is, it may provide training, but teach your kid how to solve math equations, teach your kids to put a comma in the right place and to write a 5 paragraph essay and all that stuff. You might get a 1500 on the SAT, pass the state test with flying colors, but none of those tests test whether you're really ready as a black person to handle and navigate the world that's waiting for you. The world that is actively pushing back on every right that black people have ever gained.
Yeah.
Who's teaching young children how to fight that fight? And in most cases, it's not your school. So parents, you have to do it. And I hope that this book is a tool that you can add to your toolbox to successfully do that.
I think that was a mic drop right there. Last but certainly not least, because you do want to do a book tour, go to different schools, become a speaker on this topic around the country. So, how do people get in touch with you to book you or buy your books en masse? We want to make sure that we have all the details.
So all of my information is at my website, which is my name, joelplummer.com. You can also find me on Instagram as Prof Plummer, Professor Plummer, Profplummer. But again, my website has all my information as links to all my books, all my contact information. And I would love to hear from you all.
I love it. Well, thank you once again for coming on my platform. I am so proud of everything that you're doing. Really, our educators are the backbone, and there's not enough good teachers out there. And you always remember the great ones. And so it was a pleasure to talk to you years ago. I'm glad to revisit. And it sounds like you've got 5 or 6 more volumes coming. So I'll just keep waiting for you to come out with your next effort and keep having you back so you can keep educating us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your advice. And thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Take care.